I think these wreaths are going to be decorating your home for a lot longer than just the festive period. They're really easy to make, just using hessian, ribbons, buttons. I like that shabby chic kind of look, and they're actually very simple too. This is how I made them. This is a really simple but I think very effective way of making a wreath. I've decorated mine with buttons. You can make it Christmassy, you can make it for a sewing room, and use different colours on there as well, although I do actually like the muted colours. But let me show you how I made it. So first of all, the ring is actually an embroidery hoop. I know you can buy metal rings for wreaths, but I'd already got some of these lying around and they were spare, so I thought I may as well use that. So that's how I kept my circle. And then the hessian that I've used to scrunch up all the way around here, I've actually cut into strips that are around about 2 or 3 inches wide, and they're each 2 metres in length. I've actually used 4 metres of hessian for this. Now I don't mind it fraying, and I don't mind it being cut at an angle. If you wanted to cut without it fraying so much, here's a tip for you. If you were to take some of the threads, and this is, hessian's just like string really, pull one of the threads out all the way down your fabric. It will pull through. It's really strong because again it's string. And then you get like a ladder effect. If you were to cut straight down that laddered section, you're not cutting across any of the sections, any of the other weave, so it tends to fray less. It will still fray, but it won't fray quite as much if you cut on that section. But I like mine to fray, so that's what I'm doing. Now then, you'll need a big needle, those to one side for a second, and a really strong thread. If you don't have a really strong thread, actually you have, because remember hessian frays, all I've done is taken really long sections of the strips of hessian and made my own thread out of them. You will need a large-eyed needle though to be able to take the string through, but you could use something like an embroidery thread. You're not going to see it, or even a crochet thread would be a good one. So I'm going to start off actually by putting a little button on the end, and this is just to stop the thread from coming through, no other reason, and it doesn't have to be a button even. So I'm just going to tie that onto the end. That will be chopped off when I come to the end of my gathering, and then I'm going to start gathering. So right down the middle of the strip, and I know they're not even, I don't want it to be, I'm going to go in and out with my needle at around about 1 inch or 1.5 inches. Doesn't have to be perfect. Better if it's not perfect, actually it looks more rustic. And then literally gather those on to the needle and pull it through. Now when I come to joining the 4 pieces, you don't need to sew them, so there's no sewing machine involved here at all. You just carry on threading the next one. I'll show you in just a second. And again, there's no measuring, there's no marking, it doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, the more imperfect, I think the better it looks. Now I haven't deliberately frayed my hessian, and you can see it starting to fray already, so that there's no need to start fraying it and pulling away at the edges. You'll be left with no fabric left. It will automatically start to fray on its own. So again, just keep pulling that up. So that's all the way through my first set here. And then I'll go straight on to the next strip without sewing. So there's one. Down the end, doesn't matter which way round, there's no right or wrong side. And then just carry on and keep doing this until you've got all 4 pieces all together on your string. Nearly there. You just need to make sure that you've got enough gathering to go all the way around your hoop or whatever circle it is you're using. It could be a bent coat hanger. So I'll just measure that will go all the way around. I'll stretch it out a little bit because I'm sure that's going to be fine. And that's going to sit on top of my hoop like that. So when it's around about right, and again this doesn't have to be perfect, I'll snip the button off the first end. Careful not to let that go because I'll never recognise it. And then I'm just going to tie that in a knot with my last end. And make sure that's nice and tight and secure, because if it comes undone now, you've got a lot of gathering to do again. So I'll go over that a few times. Okay, need that out of the way. I'm just going to space out let myself a minute. Space out the gathers so that they're even. And then start to twist all of the gathers around so they're all facing different directions. If this gets a little bit too much, you can trim the string back. And this gives it, again, a little bit more randomness. It's a little less even now. That's starting to get there. Now then, I'm going to take a piece of string, quite a long piece of string, and this is how I'm going to attach it to my hoop. You could use some of the string from the hessian, but I want this to be quite strong, and I don't mind if you see this as well, actually. So literally, all I'm going to do is to tie a knot. I'll take that to the back so you don't see it. And then literally just wind this rope all the way around. So over the hoop and over my fabric. And then I'm going to do the same with some ribbon. And I've got some lace actually. I like contrast of textures. So things like hessian with lace go really, really well. If you see like leather and lace tends to go really well, or something that's very rough and rustic with something very pretty has an unusual contrast. So mixing really tough fibres like this with the likes of maybe broderie anglaise or a very pretty lace has quite an unusual effect. Okay, so I'm just going to tie off, in fact I'll pull that a little bit tighter there, that's it. Tie off the end of my knots. Okay, keep all of your knots to the back so nobody's going to see those. And that's how we're starting to look. So I'm going to keep rearranging and twisting that until I'm happy with it. I don't like regular folds like this, so that's where I'm just going to keep twisting those around to give it a more fluffy effect. And of course making sure that you don't see my hoop. It's looking nice. And then I'm going to go over again with some ribbon. I've chosen all muted tones, so they're all the same kind of colours. If this was going to be a Christmassy one, I might put a little bit of red ribbon in there as well. So just the same with my checked ribbon, so I'll knot one end off at the back first of all. And I've probably used about a metre or just over a yard of ribbon here, and just keep wrapping it around. And this not only looks pretty, it's just reinforcing the hessian to the hoop. So the more you go over, the more it's going to actually keep its shape. So just making sure I'm going in a circle, pulling that nice and tight. Again, I don't want to see that hoop, so I'm going to make sure that's covered over. Back to the beginning. Looking pretty. And tie the knot at the back. Let's put the extra off there. Just even that bit out a little bit. And then I've got some lace, which is again in a similar tone of colour. This one's got little pink flowers on it. Off you go. And I'm going to wind this in the opposite direction. So I'll tie my knot at the back again. And this time I'm going to wind anti-clockwise. Clockwise. So that when it crosses over the ribbon that I've just put on, basically it's going in the opposite direction. and tight. Just twist it over. Now I've got my glue gun switched on, that's heating up at the moment because I'm going to attach some buttons, but I don't want to sew them on. Oh, I've just got one twisted again. Just long enough. So where can I tie that? That's it. I lost the end for a second. There, that's nice and tight and it's very secure now. So I can just keep arranging till I'm happy with the look. Pretty. Then I'm going to put some, well, I'm going to put a bow on the top, so I need to decide which one the top one's going to be, and I think that looks like it should be the top because it's just a little bit flatter than the rest. So I'm going to take my ribbon, the same ribbon that I wrapped around it so it's all coordinating, make 2 loops, and then tie a knot with those 2 loops and you get the perfect little bow. Fold that over and cut a snip out of the end. That's actually to help stop the fabric from fraying, but it does give a pretty look. And I'm simply going to use my hot glue gun and attach that to the top. So it starts to look finished, I think, now we're decorating it. And then I want to put some buttons on as well. But I don't want to sew them on, but I want them to look as though they are sewed on. So I've got a random selection of buttons that are the same kind of colour. And what I've done in the centre of these is to just sew as if so that they look as though they're sewn on basically. So I've just gone over and over with the thread. And when you've got buttons, if you're anything like me and I've got quite a few jars of buttons, sometimes I don't like them because you buy them all mixed up, and I didn't like that one. Just try turning them over because sometimes the back of the button is prettier than the front of the button. And then I'm going to again glue these on. Do be careful if you're using these hot glue guns, they are hot. And I'm just going to randomly pop these on. I've got a couple of darker buttons on there as well, so I'm not going to put those together. But it does give the illusion that these have actually been stitched on. Let's see how we're looking. I think we need a few more. We'll have one right in the middle of the bow as well. If you're using a glue gun, you will get these hair-like trails of glue. I find it quite satisfying to pick them off actually. But if you have a heat gun and just give it a blast over, it'll melt away all of those bits. Now then, if it is going to be something a little bit Christmassy, I thought some cinnamon sticks might look nice as well. And instead of bunching them up into big groups, I'm keeping it quite simple with these. I'm just going to wrap some string around each individual one. If you've got a bigger wreath, then it might be quite nice to have quite a few of these, because I'll put them in bunches as well, because they'll smell gorgeous over Christmas time. Maybe put some cloves in there too. But that's all I'm going to do, is just simply tie a knot around. I've only got 3 of them. I think odd numbers look more balanced. I wouldn't put just 2 or just 1 on. And just tied up with string. It smells nice already. Like so. I think that can sit in there. Quite a lot of glue on that one. And just nestle that inside. can sit in there, I think. So the next one needs to go at the top. I can go in there. So it's not too obvious. And I think that's dressed enough, so it's all ready for hanging. Again, because it's on the embroidery hoop at the back, I can just pop a nail into my door or into the wall and just hang it up as it is like that.